Hey guys, gals, and MPs, I'm here with the Dreadbox Artemis. And just to get started, I will say that this synth is going back for a few reasons. And most of those reasons are me and my expectations out of a synth these days. It's not that it's a bad synth. That's why I'm making this video. I think it's actually the best sounding analog synth on the market right now. I mean, I say that about every analog synth that I've gotten. That's not actually true. I've had a few analog synths that I didn't really gel with, that I just didn't like. Long time ago, I had a Rev 2, and I guess that's DCOs though, but yeah, it wasn't a very good sounding synth in my opinion. But yeah, the Artemis sounds absolutely fantastic. Let's get that out of the way. One caveat I will say, if you are looking at this, seems to be kind of an issue. You can go online and look this up, but the OLED screen emits a pretty loud buzzing sound. It gets actually annoying. That's one of the reasons I'm returning this unit in particular, but I'm not going to get a replacement because of some of the shortcomings that I personally don't gel with, but I'm sure a lot of my viewers will like this synth in its own, capacity. It's a little too simple for me. And synths like the multi-poly have kind of just, spoiled me for options. And the multi-poly sounds so good, I don't care that it's not either a hybrid or a true analog synth. I will put it out here right now, after playing with the multi-poly for so long, the multi-poly has become my favorite synth just in general as subtractive synths go. So, I mean, even as wavetable synths go. I do like the Summit quite a bit more in terms of audio quality when it comes to the effects. The effects on the Summit are absolutely wonderful, but I wish the Summit, like they made a Summit with a SEM style filter. That would just be amazing. But that said, let's get into the things I do like about this and why it might be a synth for you. All right, so yeah, I'm going to cut in really quick the noise issue on this screen. So now that you heard that noise issue, it is actually not that as loud as it's made out to be in that video. There is a push that I pushed up there so you could hear it, and I also EQ'd it so you don't hear all the rumbling of the air conditioners in the background. But I can hear it at an actual working distance from the synth without my headphones on, and if I get close to it with my headphones on, I can actually hear it. It is quite annoying, and it does come up on my microphone that I'm using, the SM7B, if I have it close enough to the synth, which is really bad for when I'm trying to demo things. So kind of annoying. Apparently, if you look online, not all of the Artemises have this, but I guess the Typhon has the same problem. So yeah, hopefully they can resolve that. That's probably the DC to DC converter that the OLED board uses. I saw somebody replacing, or they were doing testing on it by moving the OLED board, and then the sound went away. But it only happens when the OLED kicks in. So yeah, hopefully that can be fixed. That's the only hardware bug that I have with this thing. Everything else that I have problems with are completely in software, and hopefully maybe they can fix it. But again, it's a limited synth. It's just not for me. But the sound, oh my god. Well, I'm going to shut up in that part of it. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first caveat I have that is kind of annoying, and the Nymphis has the same issue, and I think the Typhon, well, the Nymphis makes sense because it's there's no screen or anything, but the Typhon has the same exact issue. I don't think there's a way to do an init patch. You just kind of have to go to the banks where the init patches live, which is actually pretty easy on here. I think they start at D, so what you can do is you hold down the encoder here, right? And then you move it, and then you move whole banks. D1 is definitely an init patch, and this is what the init patch sounds like. Okay, and before we get started too much into that, this has 3.0 FM, and you may be thinking, wow, doesn't the TO5? From what I can tell, I haven't taken a unit apart, nor have I seen the PCB, but from all the discussions online, this uses the same exact VCOs as the TO5 and the Take 5 do, and they are implemented to allow 3.0 FM. That's what I've read, and this does have true VCAs from what I've read. It doesn't go through a digital or analog to digital conversion, and then it plays with it in that way. So that's also really cool. So if you don't have the effects going, that this is a true analog signal path, as far as I can tell. The only thing that differs with this and, like, let's say the T05 and the Take 5, other than the fully analog signal path, even though they have the same chips, the filter is completely different. And the filter sounds so wonderful on this thing, and that's kind of my disappointment with some of the functions on this synth. Why I'm not keeping it, but the filter kind of almost kept me keeping the synth. But let's just hear the filter. All right, this is amazing. All right, so we just have a saw wave, right? Let's double that up. So let's do this. So I have catch. Oh, and if you notice there, look at that. Look at the bottom there on the screen. Yeah, something that Sequential has never done on the Take 5 and the TO5 yet. You can see the values. I mean, they're a little small on the bottom, and it's hard to see because there's parallax, because there's a window here. So if you're sitting at an angle, you kind of want this propped up at you to see those values. It would be cool if it shows it on the full screen and then disappears the preset after, you move a value, but, at least it tells you the value. So, all right, so catch is on, so that means that I have to move the whole sweep of the knob to get it to respond to exact positioning. This is exactly the same behavior on the Korg R&D synths by default. I like it, so I'm just used to it. So now both oscillators are used. And I did already calibrate this. The calibration is super annoying because it doesn't give you any indication that it's running or that it's finished. What happens is if you open the gate and open up the VCA, you'll hear it doing its tuning routine, but you won't get any visual feedback. I hope they fix that in firmware and tell you that it's done tuning. All right, so I mean, I guess that's better than the nymphs, where it just, just has it open and you hear the tuning algorithm and you blast your ears out. But yeah. All right, so we have two oscillators, right? And now we can do the detune thing. We have a detune control. You can so VCO2 you can go in full semitone increments up to 2 octaves, so you could do like fifths and everything. Don't worry about that. That exists. And then we can do a little bit of detune. Let's hear that. Sounding almost exactly to the TO5, except a little brighter because we don't have any analog to digital conversion, so there's no extra filtering happening in that. And I think it sounds great just by that. But here's the filter. So let's turn the filter all the way down. Let's go over here to the envelope. And as you hear that the default patch already has some release. So we're going to use the filter envelope, which is the default envelope. So to switch between, you only have 2 envelopes. To switch to the VCA envelope, you click VCA. It's a lovely interface. That's why I think this synth will be for lots of people out there that complain about the multi-polys. Really shitty interface. I will say that the multi-poly has a shitty interface. I've actually accidentally cleared a patch on the multi-poly that I was working on because I turned the wrong knob. So that's cool. This doesn't really have that problem. So yeah, so now we're in the VCF envelope. So let's give it some attack, right? Oops, that's a little too much attack. Let's add some release to that. And there's one of the problems I have. The envelopes are very clicky, and when you get the envelope reset, after you use all of your polyphony, you get that click. You hear that? It only happens sometimes. Yeah, you can kind of hear that in there. That is a little annoying. It's easy to work around, especially if you have effects on it. Like if you're going to have reverb and things like that, it's not a big deal. As you can hear, that is already a lovely sounding filter. It's smooth, it's silky. Let's go to the VCA and add some more release to the VCA as well. But they can fix the clicking envelopes. I remember the nymphs had the same exact issue, but they came out with a firmware 2.0 because Dreadbox really does support their synths. I asked them about the tuning issue being annoying, where they, like I was asking them if that's default behavior, and they got back to me really quick. So their support is excellent. That's probably one of the reasons you should support the company, because they are good about things like that. And I should say that I'm not getting paid to say that. I literally bought this with my own money, and yeah, unfortunately, just there's some things we'll get into in a minute. I know I'm all over the place, but yeah, listen to that. All right, here's where the kicker comes in. So you have a 12 dB filter, and by default, it's in 24 dB mode. I think the normal Dreadbox filters are 12 dB, but this has both modes. So here, let's listen to that in 12 dB mode. It's going to have a lot of bite. Isn't that just gorgeous and smooth? All right, now here's the kicker. Let's hear the resonance. Let's go ahead and sweep the resonance. So, because again, knob catch-up is turned on. Knob catch-up, it's the best condiment. Anyway, so let's have half resonance, and here's where the fun comes. Just wowie. So that filter in this thing, I think personally, and you're gonna just, I don't know if you're gonna go with me on that. That's like in the 12 dB mode, it sounds like a synth filter, but just with so much even more character. All right, and we do have a sub-oscillator. Unfortunately, you can only choose one or the other, noise or sub-oscillator, but there's a little bit of things you can do between that. Yeah, so let's just choose the sub-oscillator so we get all of the fun going in. Let me go down an octave here. Off screen, I have my launch key Mark 4. I think I'm going to get the 61 key version. I love this thing. All right, headphone users, be aware. In a second, what is going to happen is I'm going to turn the resonance way up. The resonance can get really bitey on this thing. I'm not going to go too much past that, but... All right, let me go up an octave here. Yeah, and I don't think that's actually stair-stepping in terms of how the processor is handling the envelopes, because it only happens at really high resonances. So I think it's just picking out all those harmonics. Because it's smooth there. And now let's hear half resonance in the 24 mode. Let's turn that up. Yeah, I think that's picking out all the resonances. There's with the sub again. So go ahead and go over here and add some sustain to the filter envelope. God, that, yeah, like I said, that is a good sounding filter. It is. I'm going to say it, and people are going to rant about me saying it, because I always say it about a lot of the analog synths I say that I get that are new. I feel like every new synth that I get that's analog is a one-up from the one I had before, but I feel... So I used to always say that the SEM filter was my favorite. Still kind of is, but damn, this filter is ace. So, and as you see here, we have spread, and as far as I know, the spread is implemented in the analog domain. I could be wrong on that. So, but it's a divergence control for the voices. So if we turn it all the way up, then we get hard panning. So let's just do this. I'll hold two notes. We'll go in. Yeah. All right, we'll go hard panning, but yeah, listen to this. Okay, and that is exactly why I think this synth sounds probably the best out of all of the true analog synths that I've ever owned. is that damn filter, and that the spread really helps to that. But here is my rant on what is missing. The the LFOs are super powerful in terms of what they can do, wave shaping. You even have XMod on the second LFO. These are all hardwired in, unfortunately. Not like physically hardwired as far as I know, but at least there's no mod matrix in here. I wish this synth had a mod matrix for the LFOs, and that would make this the perfect synth, and that is part of the reason I'm returning it, other than the OLED noise, which I could have gotten a new one for the OLED noise and hopefully gotten a good one, but yeah, just be aware of that. If the OLED noise doesn't come through the audio path, as you can hear it, the audio path is nice and clean. It's just really annoying to somebody with me with really good hearing. So, and I've noticed a lot of people were complaining about that too. I've let some other people on some other Discord channels listen to it, and I guess they feel the same way, that that noise is just obnoxious. But that said, these are very rigid LFOs. I wish that the LFO could be pointed to, like, let's say the spread control, so I can have the spread come in and out. That would be fucking fantastic. Can't do that. I can't have the LFO control the through 0 FM. I mean, I can have one of the envelopes, but we only have 2 envelopes, so that kind of takes care of that. So that's a problem. So yeah, it's the LFO section, unfortunately, and there's no mod matrix. I wish it had a mod matrix, and I wish that it also had noise as a source for the waveforms in the LFO, or a separate mod matrix with noise as a source to like modulate the VCOs and things like that. You can kind of do that with the filter FM, but yeah. And the syncing is a little unique on this, because the syncing for the oscillators, as far as I know, can use a noise source as well as VCO2, I think is where it hard syncs from. I don't remember. We'll listen to some hard syncing in a minute, but it's upsetting, because the synth sounds so good by itself without any effects that all the limitations make me just but again, I'm spoiled from digital synths. But yeah, you gotta admit that filter sounds just gorgeous. It can go from this like let's go here. We'll do just a little no resonance. It goes from smooth. And you could hear the envelope reset and the clickiness of that. I mean, that's also voice stealing, but there's some clickiness in the envelopes. Again, that can be fixed in software, I assume, because they did it on the nymphs, whatever. I like the name of the Artemis too, because obviously being a Sailor Moon fan, so and a Hades fan. Artemis is one of the coolest boons to use in that game. She's pretty awesome. Anyway. Yeah, so it goes from that smooth, just lovely silkiness of the filter to this bitey, growly, angry thing. Not many filters do that. Like the SEM filter does that. This does that. The Peter Parker filter, I always call it the Peter Parker filter because it's hilarious. The Parker Steiner filter or whatever on the Brute synths does not get that smooth. I mean, the Moog ladder-esque filter, the ladder Moog-esque filter on like the Polybrute, which I did finally sell my Polybrute. It's just too damn big for my studio and for my upper body strength at this point. To keep moving it in and out of my table, but it was never this smooth and then this bitey at the same time. It couldn't get both really well, and this just does. All right, well. The multi-poly gets very close in smoothness though, and with a little bit of EQing you get there. That's why it's also like the multi-poly has become my personal favorite. But if you want simplicity and you want the sound, this just does it. It just has a lot of limitations. So yeah, I wish the LFO could be tied to the FM, for instance. Let's hear the FM, shall we? All right, so let's just go to one VCO. Let's switch this over to triangle. Oh, and also the triangles sound really good, but of course because it uses, I think, the same chip as the Take 5 and TO5, then of course the oscillator is going to sound fine. Unfortunately, the Take 5, as much as I love the filter, it has a sine wave instead of a triangle, and that is it. You don't really need to use a sine wave in analog subtractive synthesis. There's no harmonics. Why would you do that? And the FM isn't particularly good on that versus the TO. So yeah, But here, so we'll FM it, and it'll sound very similar to how the TO5 handles it, because if it's the same chips, then that makes sense. But and now if I change the VCO2, and we're only hearing VCO1, but because I'm using FM and it is controlled by VCO2 as far as I know, then yeah, so it sounds really cool, and you can make some really beautiful dissonant noises. As you saw here, I'm going to turn down the attack, so and then, of course, we can do the trick that I did in my TO5 video, and we can do the oscillator sync on top of that. Let's also turn off the sub-oscillator because we can get some weird glitching. Resonance to that. Let's turn this thing down. And here you can hear how clicky the envelopes are with no attack. Of course you can work around that by adding a little attack, but then you get attack. So yeah, hopefully they can fix that. But yeah, that's another complaint. It's not just me. A lot of people are complaining about the clicky envelopes. So here. And that's just how the syncing and everything's working, why we hear glide. You have glide as well. So it's got all the prerequisite fun things, but yeah. Let's go ahead and and here's another thing that I don't like. You can't control you can't control each individual oscillators PWM as far as I can tell by itself, nor can you set a LFO specifically to one oscillator or the other independently with different values. You can, however, set only one oscillator to have the LFO applied to it, but you can't set separate values to each oscillator as far as I can tell. So in order to do that, let's do this. So yeah, so if I switch that, that's going to be oscillator 1, so that'll give us actual pitching because we have syncing turned on in FM. But if I go to like now oscillator 2, it's going to change the FM type. Can make this glitchy, lovely thing though. Let's go back to oscillator 1. Let's get this beautiful nostalgic sound, right? And as far as I can tell, these are not audio rate. So, and the other thing that I'm annoyed by, LFO2 has the cool cross mod feature that uses cross modding from LFO1, but I can't use LFO2 to control the VCO's pitch. So LFO2 does wave, so the wave shape, the wave knob goes through it, and it does PWM, which is fine, right? But maybe I want to have the cross mod of the LFO2 deal with the pitch of VCO2 for the FMing, for instance. So again, I know limitations build creativity in the synth space, but there's sometimes too much limitations, and that's the takeaway. This thing, again, super simple to use, super gorgeous sounding. Some people would love those limitations, and the sound just you can hear, but and you can hear that clicky ass envelope. And it gets worse with a delay because you kind of compound that. We'll listen to the effects in a second. The effects, as much as like they tout the sine vibe effects, I think it's sine vibe or whatever, I don't think they're very good, but I always use external effects. I think that a lot of my other synths have better effects. So I'm sorry to say, I don't want to like make anybody feel bad at sine vibes, but I just don't think that the effects sound all that great on this thing. They're not terrible, they're not unusable, but they're definitely better than what's on the TO5 and Take 5. Well, maybe the one thing I will say that the TO5 and Take 5 do have very good chorus effects. All right, so we're back into it. So let's mess. I told you that the noise can be used in some cases. So what we're going to do is we can use filter FM, and we can use that noise. So by default, I think filter FM uses VCO, one of the VCOs, to control it. But what we can do is we can use noise instead, and that makes for this gritty, lovely sound. Watch this. Okay, let's make the wiggles a little less. And let's turn the resonance down. When you use noise, the resonance is gonna. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh my god. I think it is. Yeah, if you can deal, like I said, if you can deal with the limitations of the routing, which I think a lot of people can. I'm one of those. I hear a lot from people, and says it's like, I'm not a sound designer, but that does sound good. But since I'm not a sound designer, this is the multi-poly or the wave state. I've gotten it on both of these. I'm not a sound designer. It's too complex for me. So even though it sounds good, I don't want to use it. And I think this is the synth that's perfect for you in that case, which is a lot of people. Just not me. So yeah, now let's go to the effects. I think some of the delays. Okay, the one thing I will say about the effects section is it is implemented the best way of any analog synth I've ever seen. So now all these controls become the effects controls. So like 5, for instance, as you can see here. I mean, I can sort of make it out there, but yeah, that's now the mix control. So watch. We'll move this over to the ping pong, which I think the ping pong is the one delay that actually does sound really good. Let's turn the spread all the way down so we can hear what it does. So let's turn on the ping pong delay. Let's give it a 50-50 mix. Because of the modulation, we're getting a lot of compounding in there. Let's turn off the VCO mod. Pretty good sounding. Let's turn it up to the highest delay time. Let's turn up the feedback a little. And then you have dampening controls so you can filter out the repeats. Okay, that one is gorgeous. I will give them that. The ping pong delay, but it's very hard to fuck up a ping pong delay. If you fuck up a ping pong delay, I don't know what's wrong with you. I've made a ping pong delay before in what is it called? Pure Data and things like that, and it sounded just fine. So it's not like you can screw it up. All right, so yeah, so we got dampening control. So all the way up, you get a very bright delay with a very little repeat, and then if you go down, then we get a very dark delay. And then right, okay, so let's go ahead and turn off the delay section. The modulation, the chorus isn't anything too special. The two synths that have standout choruses are the Polybrute, absolutely fantastic sounding chorus. I really should check the Mini Freak if it has a similar chorus. And obviously the Summit. They have the choruses that are just absolutely wonderful. Polybrute has a one knob chorus that just you don't have to do shit to. It just sounds great. And the Summit has a very tweakable chorus that can sound very good to like exceptional. It kind of, that's its range. This is just passable in my opinion. So no spread, so we can hear what the chorus does. It's a little flat sounding, even if we turn the depth up, turn the width all the way up, which is stereo width. Usually when I think width on a chorus, it's the LFO width, how much it modulates, but it's different here. You have feedback control too, so you can kind of flange, I guess. Yeah, so you can kind of flange in it. Let's add no feedback. And then we have like the ensemble. Again, it's even with all the settings, it sounds a little lifeless to me. The tape chorus, which I thought would be cool, it's not bad. If we turn it all the way up, I think we could kind of get a vibrato. BBD chorus sounds okay. Let's turn down the feedback so it doesn't sound flangery. Flanger sounds nice. Nice flanger. BBD flanger, so we get like a boss flanger pedal kind of sound. Through zero flanger, so then we get tape flanging. Sounds nice. The flangers actually do sound pretty good. The phaser sounds okay. That'd be really good on string sounds. Barberfold phaser also sounds nice. Double notch, not sure what that is. Pitch shifter. Alright. We have a lot of distortions. They sound okay. They do actually sound okay. I'll say the distortions sound good. The reverbs are kind of not great. Here, let's do that. Let's do a big reverb here. This is the large. Turn the feedback up because it's probably based on a delay network. Not particularly awful, not particularly good. Middling at best. The huge reverb sounds okay again. This one has some modulation. Not bad, not bad. Just not great. You're not buying the synth for the effects, in my opinion. You're probably, if you're in this kind of price point, most people are looking at external effects anyway. Or you already have them, because this is I think this is kind of a boutique style luxury synth, how to put it. Cloud is a granular reverb. Sounds kind of cool. I think the Typhon had that one as well. And then you can set the you can set it to kind of shimmer. The shimmer reverb, not very good. But yeah, and then you have a small. They're passable. They're serviceable. That's the best I can put them. You're best off just using the ping pong if you can get away with it, and then an external reverb. So, yeah, you got a BBD delay that sounds okay too. With modulation. So yeah, the delays, I kind of take it back. The delays are okay. They're definitely serviceable and nothing special, but yeah. The special comes from the analog section of the synth, the actual synth engine, as it will. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and just before we stop this video, Let's go ahead. Let's hear like the pulse width modulation. Let's just make a quick patch. Let's do a double pulse width modulated patch. I wish, like I said, you could have the pulse width on one oscillator, like a triangle, and then the other one a random one, and controlled independently from the LFO. But it doesn't seem like you can do that at all. So let's turn on both. Let's go to a square wave, which is right here. And this is variable too, so let's hear that really quick. Let's turn up the wave. So you can do some fun stuff with that. Okay, and let's go ahead and turn on, let's make it a fifth. And then let's go ahead and use pulse width. And it does go through 0. You can hear a little bit because I guess the pulse width isn't calibrated exceptionally well. See? Yeah. You gotta get this really dead center too to get both of them to be in, I guess, right around there. I mean, it's close enough. There's a little bit in the background that I can hear, so, but yeah. Let's turn to middle. We're gonna make kind of a stringer style patch, and then we'll use the phaser, I guess. Okay. So let's turn down this. Let's do 12 dB. Let's go to the VCA, turn that up, turn this up, and turn the envelope up. Whoops. Yeah, so we want the envelope up. We want attack. Let's add a little detune on top of the 7, the 5th up. Let's add a phaser. Phaser's cool. Let's add a delay. We'll add the ping pong. Had a lot of feedback. Nice time. There we go. Let's add the sub. Less feedback, okay. With the delay. So yeah, I mean, it's a super serviceable synth, and I love it, but again, the limitations just kind of kill it for me, unfortunately. We can even add a little bit of filter FM with the noise. Let's add a little bit of wiggles. Gorgeous, right? Gorgeous. All right. So this video is already super long. I rambled a lot. I talked about why personally I don't like this as a synth that I could personally get behind and use for my usage. I do love the sound quality. As you could hear, the sound quality is very good. Maybe in future firmwares that they can fix some of the limitations, especially with LFO destinations, because as far as I know, that has to be implemented in software, right? I mean, the wave shapes, you could do so many wave shapes and things like that, so I'm guessing that's all implemented in software. There's no way that's done in hardware these days. So that should be fixable. I wish you had a third envelope that you could maybe bring up in one of the extra menus that you could use with a mod matrix. I wish this had a mod matrix, a proper mod matrix. I know that adds some complexity to it in menu diving, but that should be the option, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. Again, that's why you can buy whatever synth you want. If you want a simple synth that absolutely sounds like mind-blowingly good, then the Artemis is kind of it on the market right now, especially if you want a desktop synth in this form factor, because otherwise you're going to be looking at like a TO5 or something like that, which I actually frankly don't think that the TO5 sounds as good as the Artemis. It does have some extra functionality. It has a huge mod matrix where you can do some cool things, but the filter on this thing sounds just unreasonably good. And then you also have filter FM, which you can kind of do filter FM on the TO5. It's just behind a menu and you use the mod matrix. And that is one of the benefits of having a digital VCA, because you can reroute shit to things that it didn't ever need to be routed to. But yeah, you can kind of do filter FM on it. So not even kind of, you can do filter FM on the TO5 as far as I remember. So, but this is simple, easy to get a good sound out of. You don't have to really work at it. If you're not a sound designer, or if you want a just beautiful sounding analog synth, this is probably your best bet. If you want to go deep diving and hate yourself because you absolutely love using Excel to make music, I'm just kind of kidding on that, then get something like this, like the multi-poly, and then just menu dive, which I do because, you know, I like the extra sound design capabilities, because I'm both a musician and a sound designer. I'm not one or the other. I'm equally both. So I like having all those extra functions. Yeah, that said, maybe give it a look. Be aware of the OLED noise issue. I don't think every single unit has it, because I've read reports of people getting another unit and then it being fine. Hopefully Dreadbox can look into that, and it is a big issue. Or if the noise doesn't bother you because it's not obviously in the output, as you can hear, then maybe it's something you can deal with. But again, sound, the buzz from the OLED, and the fact that this has too many limitations on the LFOs, which is a big deal for me, then it is going back, unfortunately. All right, that's the end of this video. It's very long. If you like my content, give this a thumbs up if you like this video in particular. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like this kind of shit, then go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you next time, which will just bring out the multi-poly. I might even make another video this weekend on the multi-poly because I love it so much. All right, bye.